Rashawn Smith, and I am the Community Development Grants Program Manager. And we are here today because we desire your input. Not only do we desire it, we're mandated by HUD, but we do desire our citizens' input on the community priority needs. Today, we will be going over the grants program information. We do have a little housekeeping rules. There are citizens that are attending virtually. If you are attending virtually, the chat will have a link for you if you would like to complete the survey. So there will be a link dropped in the chat. For those that are in person, we do have restrooms here on the first floor. We ask you to be mindful and to either mute your phone or turn off your phone, whatever's most convenient. If you are in person and you desire to ask a question, we ask that you come to the mic. Please state your name so that those that are visiting us virtually will hear your question. For those of you that are virtual, if you have a question, please feel free to drop that in the chat, and we do have someone that will relay your question. For those that are in person, if you did not sign in, we ask that before you depart, you do sign in. Our virtual community, please drop your name, the agency you represent if you are representing an agency, and then your email address. So this year, community development, as we work on our 5-year consolidated plan, we have partnered with a phenomenal, we have partnered with a phenomenal consultant that we are partnering with for our 5-year consolidated plan. We will go over all the information that tells how your input is important in that consolidated plan. And JQuad Planning Group has for over 25 years a nationally known consultant that is an expertise in this field will be going over the initial presentation. So Mr. James Gillian and his team will be assisting us, and we will begin with his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you all for coming out tonight to be with us. What we wanted to do is to walk you through a presentation that will outline the grant that the city will be applying for, and the components of it, how it can be used, and how you, most importantly, can give us input in terms of how you, your priorities in terms of how you'd like to see the funding used. To our listening audience, again, I just want to emphasize that you're receiving the same presentation live, and if you have any questions, you have the opportunity to jot your questions into the chat. We'd also encourage our listeners to also scan the QR code and please complete the survey. So I'm going to walk you through the presentation, and then at the end, I'll ask you if you have any questions that you'd like to discuss. So first of all, in 1995, HUD announced that by formula grant, entitlement communities would complete a consolidated strategy plan once every 5 years. And as a result, each year, by formula allocation, all cities, counties, states, and other eligible applicants would get an entitlement share, if you will, of the funding that's appropriated. So Congress appropriates a total amount for the country as a whole, and then based on a number of factors, everything from population, number of housing units, conditions within your community, you get your share of that formula. So jurisdictions have to apply for the funding each year. They have to provide the data structure to support their needs within the jurisdiction, and then they create what's called an annual plan that then outlines exactly the activities that they will carry out should they receive their formula grant. First of all, there are 5 separate areas that are eligible for funding. It is a block grant, so the city of Killeen, like all other cities, are allowed to actually determine how they'd like to use their allocation. One other thing that I want to point out before I go any further is that if you signed in, we will also share this presentation via email for you, so we won't force you to have to write everything down on the screen as we go through these screens fairly quickly. Those 5 areas, though, are housing, first of all, with a particular emphasis on affordable housing, economic development, which focuses on job creation and opportunities for economic development to occur within your community, public services, which include community, social, human, health services. It's also eligible to be used for public infrastructure, things like water, sewer, infrastructure that your city and helps supplement what your tax dollars actually pay for infrastructure. And then there's supplemental funding that jurisdictions receive from time to time, depending on special circumstances. So many of you may remember during COVID-19, there were additional grant funding under this program for help people to pay rent, utilities, and other activities. So it is flexible enough that this plan also supports needs that we didn't anticipate at the beginning of the 5-year period. It also allows jurisdictions to apply for funding for disaster recovery. Again, things that may not have anticipated at the time that we were applying for the grant, but nevertheless, HUD will make that responsible and usually provides an additional allocation of funding beyond what was planned for each of those annual years. So in order for Killeen to receive the funding, they have to complete what's called the consolidated plan. So it's your 5-year plan that outlines your need, but also how you plan to utilize the funding. So this covers the period of 2025 through 2029, and then the city of Killeen is allocated its formula share for each year. So the first year under this new 5-year plan will be for 2025. There's also an additional component of this analysis that requires that you identify any impediments to your ability as a city to address those issues that you now want to fund. And so the goal is that the city will focus not only on identifying the types of activities that they'd like to carry out over the next 5 years, but also addressing any challenges that they might have in terms of activities that might have to be dealt with in order for the funds to really get to the intended place. So things like, what's your strategy for homelessness, for example? This program, entitlement funding, is enacted by the U.S. Congress each year. So Congress appropriates a dollar amount. Last year, it was March 8th of 2024. So we anticipate around March, they will actually allocate the funds. And then you receive your allocated amount and you're able to carry out the activities. Just to give you an idea, nationally, you see the dollar figures for 2024 for both the Community Development Block Grant Fund and for the Home Program. So those are the dollar amounts that Congress appropriated in 2024 for the program. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude of funding. The allocation of funds, there are 7 areas that the city can choose to apply grant funding to these activities. They can apply, for the most part, all or none to each of these activities, so it is at the discretion of the city. So it ranges from community facilities all the way to housing in terms of eligible activities that can be funded. To give you an idea of the funding in 2024, the city received a total of $1.3 million. And you see also the types of uses that they were able to use that funding for. Administration is restricted to no more than 20%, and that 20% covers both the activities, monitoring the programs, but also any activities that they would have to do in order to make the funds available. So for example, if one of the activities they funded were home improvement loans, then part of that 20% goes toward the monitoring of both the work that's being performed as well as the funding and the application for funding. Up to 15% can be applied to public services, and then 65% can cover any of the uses like housing, public facilities, code enforcement, those kinds of things. And again, it's strictly up to the discretion of the city as to how much funding they allocate for each of these activities. They just can't exceed the percentage for each of those. There's also, in addition to the Community Development Block Grant Fund, there's a special allocation for housing itself. If the city wants to dedicate funding for affordable housing activities, they can dedicate 75% of that funding to affordable housing, and that's the $400,000 that they have in terms of a statutory limit that they can allocate it. An example of affordable housing funding would be down payment and closing costs for a person interested in purchasing a home. The CDBG activities must meet at least one national objective. So the funding, the criteria is that if you accept the funds, you have to either benefit low and moderate income persons, or you have to aid in the prevention or elimination of slum and blighted conditions within your community, or thirdly, you can respond to a natural disaster, unanticipated or urgent need. COVID was deemed as one of those. To give you an idea of who qualifies or what areas qualify for the funding, first of all, 51% of any census tract within the city becomes eligible for funding. And also an individual household who earns 80% or below the median income for your area would be eligible. So if we were funding water and sewer or sidewalk improvements, that census tract, that area that a person lives in, if your total census tract is 51% low and moderate income, you can automatically apply funding to an activity that will benefit everyone who lives within that census tract. And what that means is once you've established that 51% of the people who live within that census tract, whatever improvement you make can then benefit and be utilized by everyone in that census tract. So let's say the city decides to make an investment in park improvements. 51% of the people who live in that census tract have to qualify by income, and then once that census tract qualifies and they make an improvement to the park, everyone who lives within the city of Killeen can then enjoy that amenity. It's also a direct benefit for persons who are 80% or below the median income. So we calculate median income by household size, which you see in the chart, that means that, for example, if the city desired to fund down payment and closing costs for a person who's buying a home, a household of 4 could earn no more than $60,250 in order to qualify for down payment and closing costs. So if the city had a program, we're going to offer $5,000 for down payment and closing costs for a home buyer, then you would then be eligible to apply for and potentially receive that down payment and closing costs in order to buy a home. Community engagement is required. Community engagement is there to, first of all, find out from you as a community what you believe as to be the priority needs for the community. That's very important because each year that the funding is made available, then you get a chance to answer the survey that was up on the QR code earlier to tell the city these are the priority needs that we as a community sees. So although the city council makes the final decision in terms of how those funds will be used, you get to influence and state what you believe the priorities ought to be for the city. So just a special note there, encourage as many people as you can to go to the website with the city, fill out the priority needs survey so the city will know exactly what you think are the priorities. And we're not just making a decision for you in terms of what's most needed. We're also required to do what is called identify any impediments to fair housing choice and to make sure that we're tackling whatever issues of discrimination might be existing within the community. So that's very important. That analysis of impediments basically looks at things like structurally, there may be homes that need to be repaired. There may be infrastructure that's needed. It may also involve impediments like a person doesn't earn enough income. So how do you advance economic development within your community using these funds to create jobs, increase wages, and those sorts of things? So it gives you an opportunity to look at those things that you need to improve upon in order to be able to receive the funding. The elements of the consolidated plan, I won't go through all of these because you'll have it in the presentation for you later. But I just want to emphasize that there's an analytical component on the right side that requires that we produce information regarding the housing market, the housing and homeless needs within the city, and that we look at the impediments. And then on the left side are the actual documents that have to be presented to HUD in order to receive the funding. Again, there are 5 principal areas that can be funded. So housing, economic development, non-housing, community development would be things like infrastructure, and then public services could range from anything from healthcare to food services and those kinds of things. So here you see the areas that are eligible for the city to apply funding to. Range from housing rehabilitation, which could be individual homes, or it could be rental housing, housing assistance so that people can purchase a home, affordable housing development so developers could both build housing but also make it affordable to individuals buying it. It could be workforce related. It could even be neighborhood revitalization. So your community is distressed and in need of changes in terms of sidewalk, curb, gutter, those kinds of things, so the funds could be invested in that manner as well. The economic development priorities are generally technical assistance to small businesses, so you'll see from time to time programs that are designed to help people either start a business, maintain a business, or provide the goods and services that they'd like. It could be for job creation, employment, advancement, workforce readiness, and even education. The non-housing type community development priorities would be things like public facilities, community facilities, and it would range all the way to education and job training activities. And then the public services, again, the city doesn't have to fund all of the activities that are eligible, but you get to decide which activities you'd actually like to fund. So that's why that QR code and that survey is very important, because you get to weigh in on what you think the priorities are. I'd like to emphasize that there are some other priorities that the funding is flexible enough to address. So when a city experiences things like disaster, that you didn't anticipate, so fires, those sorts of things. There is a provision for the same funding to be provided in a supplemental manner so that beyond the amount that you're eligible for each year, usually there's a supplemental funding to cover those kinds of things that you didn't anticipate. And at this point, I'm going to, you want me to stop for questions first, or?
We'll go through the next
Okay.
sections.
Okay, then.
So we thank Mr. Gillian for that portion of the presentation. He mentioned earlier about supplemental funding, and the city of Killeen did receive some supplemental funding called Home ARP. It was under the American Rescue Plan Act, and Ms. Sierra from our department is going to touch on that and give a brief overview on Home ARP.
If you want to. Hello, my name is Celeste, and I work for Community Development. The other supplemental funding that Rashawn was talking about was the Home American Rescue Plan. And this is a program specifically to be used to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability for the benefit of qualifying individuals. We developed an American Rescue Plan that we submitted to HUD, and where we needed to identify the qualifying individuals and families who would be assisted with this type of funding. The eligible activities, the plan itself is up on our website as well, if you want to take a look at that. Eligible activities, supportive services, acquisition and development of non-congregate shelters, tenant-based rental assistance programs, and the development and support of affordable rental housing. Qualified populations are homeless, at risk of homelessness, maybe a person or a family that's fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking, and other populations as well. The council has approved a category of funding under supportive services. We received actually the $1,778,641, and from there, council approved these categories of funding that we can address those particular needs to. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Celeste. So I will review the Section 108 Legacy Challenge loan pool. So the HUD Section 108 Legacy Challenge program allows a community development block grant entitlement community, which we are. Mr. Gillian just went over that information. It allows us to borrow up to 5 times our block grant allocation. And that was that $1.3 million that we received as an entitlement. And we can use that flexible federally backed financing. With Section 108, the Legacy Challenge that HUD has issued that challenge to communities, is targeting up to $250 million of its loan authority. And so this is, these funds, although they are part of our entitlement, it is a loan. There are extended flexibilities that the applicants, which we as a community would be an applicant applying for these funds. Section 108 can be used for housing development, legacy housing projects, so any housing projects that the community may have, and other Section 108 eligibility activities, and we will review some of those activities that are eligible under Section 108. So we can use that for acquisition of real property. So if we wanted to acquire property for projects, rehabilitation of housing, so if there's some housing rehab that needs to take place, economic development projects, the variety of uses for that, public facilities and infrastructure projects. That infrastructure, Mr. Gillian mentioned earlier, sidewalk improvements, water line improvements, those are examples of your infrastructure projects. Activities in support of new housing construction. And then community development-based organizations who are supporting or have efforts to do new construction within our community. So as mentioned prior, this 1.3 million that we received in our block grant allocation, and we have up to 5 times borrowing capacity for that. This would be the total amount that we have borrowing authority for. So for our community, what would be some potential uses for this Section 108 loan pool? So we may have potential projects that we can use, mixed-use development, expansion of the Killeen Reunification Center that the city is currently working on to house our unhoused neighbors and supportive services. Investment in the North Killeen revitalization area. We've been hearing a lot about revitalizing our North Killeen area. So we can use many of those affordable housing developments, small business loan fund for those that are looking to do small businesses. And again, those infrastructure improvements, sidewalks, and other projects. And elimination of slight, Blum and Slight. And then expansion of the Killeen Library, the main branch library. Okay, so this is the portion where you get to engage and talk and tell us about your priority needs. As you all took the survey, if you had any questions about those priority needs, we'd like to hear from you. So the floor is open. Please remember, if you have a question, we ask that you come up to the mic, state your name, and then we will answer your questions.
Hello, my name is Gail Perez. I'm a former educator for 14 years in Killeen, the city of Killeen. And my feeling is that our youth need more education in taxes, in business, in entrepreneurship, in how to use their finances that they get from working at Burger King or whatever. Because we've had, in the last 2 weeks, 3 incidences where students, children, 14, 15, 17, have stolen vehicles and caused accidents. The police chases are ridiculous. And I know they need to catch the cars and whatever, but the students are not fulfilled in the school district. They are not fulfilled by their parents. They have got to have a plan. And so my answers on most of these were concerning education. Our youth are the future. Right now, they do not feel purposeful. That's why they're finding these other devious means to go out and maybe please a gang or do whatever they're doing. But the youth have got to come first. No city hall, we don't need a city hall, new city hall building. We need new roads. We do need our youth to be fulfilled, purposeful, mentored. As an educator, I left the system, but a pre-K teacher was told the parent that their 3-year-old kicked her, okay? Well, it was a private school, not KSD necessarily, but still, they didn't believe the teacher, they believed the kid. And the kids need respect. The educators, need to understand that they have different needs. And our children are the community. They need our services. They need to be mentored by great adults. And so I feel that every adult, every business should have 5 students that they are mentoring. That would give them purpose, come and learn about the city ongoings, come and learn about voting, come and learn about finances and taxes and how to buy a house and how to save for a house and how to, be more sound and productive. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Gale. We appreciate your comments. I'm sure there are plenty of organizations, nonprofits out there that have programs that benefit the youth. And again, I just wanted to revisit this slide that indicates the usage, the activities that must meet one of those national objectives. And, I know you made your comment about the city hall. Again, these are comments, these are the uses that are available that must meet one of these national objectives. I believe there is a question that came in via our virtual community.
Okay, the question is from Ms. Stewart in the online chat. She asked, can Section 108 place a grocery store in downtown Killeen? She also stated that we need more senior living housing. And so I do have an answer for the Section 108 question. If it is viable and passes HUD review, funds are allowed to be used for a grocery store to benefit a low to moderate area. So
Okay.
that was also the question and the answer.
Okay. What's the second question? You answered the 108.
It was a statement of, it was just a statement that we need more senior living housing in the area.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Are there any additional?
A couple, according for your, to improvement to help eliminate slumlords and the accountability. I work for another city entity, and we have a program called ROPE, Repeat Offender Program, within our code enforcement, and it helps make those slumlords accountable for repairs, upkeep. We have where if they don't upkeep and they don't rent out, we block them from renting out. So it's a program maybe City of Killeen can look into for. It's called Repeat Offender Program. A lot of major cities are investing in that to help with improving the quality of life in those renters.
Can we get you just to get a little closer to the
Sorry.
mic? That's okay.
I'm sorry. But you heard that, or do I need to repeat?
If you can repeat it just so our virtual audience can
Okay, sorry,
ensure.
apologies. Invest in what we call a ROPE program, Repeat Offender Program, to help eliminate your slumlords, your low-income apartments, and to where they're, if they can't fix the things that are out of compliance, you know, you can prevent them from renting out. It's a program in a lot of big cities, and it works well. You just have to have the compliance from your code enforcement to help run that program. That's one. Two, somebody mentioned affordable senior housing. I've lived in this community 40 years. I have yet to see a really good program for affordable senior housing where you can have small garden homes. You know, that can be a project to affordability for seniors. And then seniors don't want 3,000 square foot homes. You know, they want smaller, single layer homes. They don't need stairs, just something, a small garden type homes would be, I think, beneficial to this community. Third, I want to follow up on the lady with the education. Use the Career Center as help with these kids find long-term stable employment. Again, we really don't have that in this area. It's a lot of short-term employment, like you said, the fast food, the thing, but invest in those long-term stable employment for these, you know, kids, and the Career Center can help with that. The Career Center, the businesses in a joint venture can help improve those with you know, finding that stable and long-term employment and using grants to help fund that. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I did want to follow up on some of the comments from our previous commenter. Just so our community is aware, for the slum and blight, there have been some adjustments with our block grant funding to eliminate slum and blight in our community. Our code enforcement, I believe our previous program year, and think a few other program years where block grant money has been utilized to fund code enforcement officers who do help to enforce slum and blight in those areas. Additionally, last program year, funds were made available for block grant for code enforcement for an unsafe structure and abatement program for those structures. If you see burned down buildings that are unsafe or that are susceptible to I'm sorry, can't think, squatting. So block grant money has been utilized in that instance for slum and blight areas. Regarding affordable housing, those home funds, we talked about block grant, and Mr. Gillian touched on home funds, which are for affordable housing. If you drive down W.S. Young and get ready to go over the bridge, there is the construction of a senior affordable housing project, Avanti Legacy Parkview. That is an affordable housing project, and some of the home funds were used towards that. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Stewart has a follow-up question. She asks, what would it take, since there was one? And this is in reference to the grocery store. I also have the answer for that. The answer would be market study, loan underwriting, additional capital from the developer.
Yes, ma'am. You can come up to the mic, please.
Hello, my name is Talisa Robinson. I had a follow-up question to your answer about the grocery store. So yes, funds could be used to build one, but build it and then what? Who's gonna run it and own it? Can you make H-E-B come and have a store here? Can you make Aldi put another location? Like, what would happen if the city spent money building a store?
That is a great follow-up
And so then we
comment.
shouldn't move not one brick until we have that answered, because then it's a waste of money.
That is correct, and
It was unsafe, that's what I heard, yeah. I haven't been here that long, but that's what I heard, yeah.
And that is a great comment. And the city would, as you said, we wouldn't proceed with a project that doesn't make sense, that doesn't have that
make sure you
good
have
background of operation. Like you say, everybody
not trying to
always say,
own and
yeah,
run a grocery store.
that
That's not
said
what I'm
that
saying,
is
so
not
that-
our area of purview. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. The city does not have the capacity to run a grocery store.
And then I had another question about the loan, the ability to borrow up to 5 times the,
The block grant entitlement.
have we as a city typically borrowed that? And how much debt are we in for that? Like, do we just keep borrowing? What are the terms of that?
So, we have never utilized our Section 108 borrowing capacity before.
okay,
This
that's what I
would
wanna hear.
be the first opportunity
Okay.
to do that. And HUD has issued this challenge. So, we would not necessarily I would say be on the hook. I want to use the correct terminology, but our entitlement is our, thank you, our collateral for that.
Okay, okay. And then, my last question, are you doing anything outside of a forum like this to try to get that survey filled out? Are you using our website, our Facebook page, or anything else to try to get more citizens to complete the survey?
Thank you for that question, that comment. Yes, this survey will be up. Besides in this forum, it is posted on all of the social medias. We have several of our, for instance, we have our CDAC committee, which is our Community Development Advisory Committee. Many of those members are involved in other community organizations that they're not only involved with, but they're leaders in their sharing those on their social media platforms. So yes, this survey will be up, and we're making all avenues that we as a city have available in sharing that.
Okay, and then can citizens share that additionally?
Sure,
So you
yes,
think about the
ma'am.
community pages that we see out there, I'm not talking about like the yard sale ones, but different neighborhood.
It can be on the
community
yard
page.
sale.
But just, okay, so they can be shared
Ye-
forward.
for sure.
And somehow you all are tracking and preventing the same person from filling out multiple surveys.
It is by your email address. So if you have another
it.
email,
Nobody's
but
got 20
we
email
want as
addresses,
much
right.
input, yeah. Yeah, so thank you. Those are excellent questions and comments. Thank you. Yes, sir. Good evening.
How you doing? I have a question, I guess a concern as far as,
Can you talk just a little bit
a
louder? in the mic?
concern about, I guess, infrastructure and trying to reconstruct or redevelopment the old part of Killeen, like the new areas that's being developed. They're kind of up to code and they're using different type of, modern piping and plumbing and things of that nature. But in the older part of the city, when you buy into those properties over there, it's got like clay pipes and things of that nature that's kind of obsolete. And we've run across a lot of issues, as far as a lot of issues as far as trying to do the repairs and things of that nature because of it's not cost effective for one, and I mean the clay pipes are kind of obsolete now. They're using like different PVCs and things of that nature.
Okay.
So what is the city gonna do as far as what can the city do now as far as for the old part of Killeen and trying to go back and revitalize that situation so that it would be more cost effective and more durable?
Okay, and I am going to try to summarize and repeat your question for the audience. Your
Yes,
voice
ma'am.
was a little low, and I understand I have a low voice. And the question or comment was with regard to infrastructure on the older part of Killeen, or north side of Killeen, building up that infrastructure and utilizing the funds for that. I will start by saying, if you look at that entitlement amount, this isn't intended to supplement. We cannot revitalize and replace all of the, as you say, clay pipes and infrastructure with $1.3 million. That's a drop in the bucket. And so, if there are other funds, because our general fund dollars are utilized to assist our community and rebuild your tax dollars, but these can be used for smaller projects or to supplement what is already being done or taking place.
So in other words, is it other programs that can assist with those kind of things?
There are other programs, and there are also important, to circle back to Mr. Gillian in this survey, the priority needs. If you say we need infrastructure on the north side of Killeen, and again, these are entitlement funds that we receive as a community based on our community makeup, the age of our infrastructure, all of those formula things come in where we get this percentage. But more so, and just to touch on it, because that's not what we're here for today, but there are competitive grants out there, competitive, which means that we apply for those grants. So if HUD releases a grant that says there's $4 million grant for infrastructure in your low to moderate income areas, then we can apply for those competitive grants. And that's part of what this plan is, our 5-year consolidated plan that talks about the strategies and need. We already have that information, that data, our community saying this is what we need, and then we can in turn apply for one of those larger grants that can address that on a larger platform. Ms. Keisha?
I do have a follow-up answer to his question. It is an eligible use if it is for a low to moderate income area. And then also, I just want to remind everyone, if you can speak into the microphone, because our viewers on Zoom can't hear you if you don't.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? No worries. My name is Shayna Glover. I am a graduate student at Texas A&M University, Central Texas. I'm doing a master's in applied psychology with the emphasis in IO. We are part of the UCARE team, which is University Center of Applied Research and Engagement. We are a nonprofit organization that works with program evaluation and strategic planning and things of that sort. I have a few questions, so I hope I don't stay too long. But my first question is, the median, I believe it was for you, Mr. Gilligan, when you had your PowerPoint up, you had families of 1, 2, and 3 households, you had a median. Where was the research of comparing medians before you guys found that number? Because what I found talking to friends and family members, like those like with SNAP benefits and WIC, they had to be almost in extreme poverty to be able to apply for those benefits. And I wonder if the median is too low for individuals who to be able to appreciate, especially military families, because they do get BAH, and some organizations include that in the total. So how did you guys find those median numbers?
So the question is, how are those median incomes defined? HUD establishes the area median income for each census tract or each area within your city. So that amount, when you see on that screen, the 80% of income limits by family size, HUD has already established their calculation. So that's not set by the city, that's set by HUD. There are a number of factors because they adjust household income both based on family size, but also based on areas. So when we say a household size of 4 can earn up to 60,250 and still be able to apply for home improvement funds or down payment closing costs, that dollar amount is established by HUD. So it's not an actual 80% of income. It is an adjusted income where HUD has a formula in terms of, what constitutes that.
And that number is fixed, correct?
And that number is fixed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
My next question would be, the loan topic was brought up. I don't think I heard or understood who pays back the loan. Is that the community? Does that come back from taxes if the loan was to be taken out? Because at the end of the day, is it not still a loan?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Okay. So for each program, you have program guidelines. If it were a down payment and closing costs program, for example, so you would first qualify based on income, so you'd have to be at 80% of median income or below for a family of 4. The next step is that when you apply for the funds, it's either a grant or a loan. Some programs allow for a grant. For example, if a family of 4 is buying a home and there's a down payment and closing cost grant of $5,000, that's an actual grant. So it's then you qualify for the dollar amount that's set. The limit is $5,000 for down payment and closing costs. You apply. Once you're approved, it's considered a grant, but it's forgiven over a 5-year period or a 10-year period, so that each year it serves like a self-amortizing loan. So you receive $5,000 for down payment and closing costs, and over a 5-year period, 1/5 of that is actually amortized. So it's essentially a grant, not a loan, but you're agreeing that you will maintain the home, you will live in the home as your personal residence, and if you fail to meet those conditions, then you have to repay some portion of the loan each year that's not yet amortized.
So it's individual, not
So it's
like-
individual. You receive $5,000, but each individual has to qualify, and then you have to comply with the rules in terms of the ability to forgive that. So it's not like a regular loan that gets paid back. You're forgiven over, say, a 5-year or a 10-year period for that. So it's really designed to help you become a homeowner if you're a first-time home buyer and have assistance in terms of down payment closing costs.
Thank you. And this is my final question. How long is the survey open? How long was it open? Or what time do you plan on closing it?
Thank you for that question. We look to possibly what we're thinking now is up until our application process opens. And I'm glad you asked that question because we have a slide where we will be going over what to look for next, which kind of has a calendar and important dates in here, so bear with me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. However, I want to ensure there are no more questions before we proceed with going over this information. If you do have questions that you think of later, we're always available at the end of the slide. Information will be posted with the email address for you to have submit any additional questions that you may have. So what's next? This meeting, we are going to do again. You are welcome to attend again. We will review this information. So our second community planning meeting will be next week, a week from today, same time, same place. For those agencies, nonprofit, for-profit, if you have an eligible project, we talked about the eligibility for those, and you all wish to apply, we are going to have a pre-app and technical workshop where we will be going over the application and the submission process for that. It's a little different for us this year. We are utilizing a grant management software, so it is going to be a different process for us this year. We hope much smoother, trying to eliminate paper and waste. So it will be submitted electronically. So we will be going over that process, what it looks like. If you are interested in applying, you are required to attend this pre-app technical workshop. And we will have all of this information, let you know where it's at our community development building, but all of that information will be available. Always check the city's website on our community development page, which is where most of this information is housed or will be housed. But we will ensure that there is a banner usually when you log onto the city website and you see all of these departments and government and know where to go. We'll try to have a banner up there that directs you. There is a pre-application process. We're trying to make that shorter, more condensed with the pre-application, so it's not long, but it does have the required information that you will need, that in turn, if you have a successful pre-application, we will let you know and inform you, as it states here, March 12th, that you will have access to the full application. Gives you that next step when our full application is closed. We briefly mentioned about CDAC, that is our Community Development Advisory Committee. That is a 10-member committee that are appointed by council. They are here to advise, give information, any organization that has a successful application, those applicants go before CDAC with a presentation to tell about your project. And CDAC in turn makes recommendations to council. You heard Mr. Gillian say within his presentation that council ultimately votes on the approved projects, which in turn is our annual action plan that we submit to HUD. So this is what we tell HUD, what is going to take place with the funds that are eligible activities throughout the year. And then you have another opportunity to say, okay, this is what I want to comment. We have a 30-day comment period. We're mandated by HUD to have this 30-day comment period. We have the proposed action plan that says this is what we're going to do with these funds based on the recommendations. There's a whole plan. It's posted on our website. It's available at our office. It's going to be available at the main library. You can read through that plan, see what the recommendations are, and then you have 30 days to comment on that. And then you have another opportunity. So after that 30-day comment period closes, we're required to have a public hearing. And those are usually held at city council meetings. You have to sign a form to comment at the public hearing, but you can come up and say, okay, these were the plan, this is the recommendations, and these are comments that I have on that. Council, again, has the ultimate decision. They can take the recommendations as presented, or they can alter that. Once council votes on that, we send our annual action plan to HUD for approval. So that is our process. These are dates. Some of them are subject to change, but that is our important dates. And again, if there are any questions as you depart from here and you're like, oh, that would have been a great question. Oh, sure. Yes, ma'am, if you want to. We do have a question.
Hi, I am Stacy Gilliard, and I'm also a master's student at Texas A&M Central Texas. My master's in applied psychology with an emphasis in experimental research. So my question kind of is, when it comes to the survey, how much weight does it actually hold? I'm assuming these are projects the city wanted to do, the things that are offered to us. So say that as a community, we decide we really do want that grocery store, and we found somebody to build that. But if the city prefers that we have roads instead, what would happen at that point? Like, does our input mean something?
Thank you for that question. And yes, if you've had the opportunity to watch our city council meetings, our mayor is always stating that we want to hear from you. So it does hold weight. We don't just make the survey just to, it's information, it's important, but we're required to get our community's priority needs. That works in addition to other plans that the city has done research and have our plans. If you have an opportunity, if you have not done so, the city has a comprehensive plan. I think we probably third year, maybe second year that the comprehensive plan was voted on. So it's a combination of your input, the city's priority needs through those plans that were adopted, the comprehensive plan. Also, the city has adopted a homeless and mental health strategic plan. So that is available on the website. So a combination of those things as the projects are and activities are brought forth, we always use the combination of those plans in the recommendations that are made to council.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cameron. I do have a kind of twist on her question. I like to look at the history. So within the last 4 years, what presentations were made to the city council and what was the outcome? So in other words, everybody said we want to have a grocery store, we want to fix the roads, but the city council came back and said, no, our focus on the future is to build affordable housing. I would like for the last 3 or 4 years to do a side-by-side comparison. And I'm curious, going forward, this is a plan for the next 5 years, 10 years? 5 years? Each year we're going to basically come back to the table and do another survey and another survey and another survey, or if things that we come to the meeting, oh, the slide's gone, but we come to the meeting at the city council and we say we want to work on sidewalks, 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 do we have to come back next year and ask the same question, sidewalks, 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 things like that? So that's the second question. Do we have to do the survey every year for asking the same thing? Thank you.
So I'll begin to address the first part of your inquiry. And we can get that information to you, but each year, the city council, that is at council meeting, so there is public record of that. If you, through the city's website, you can go on the city's agendas and you can see the full presentation with applicants, their project that they applied for, the recommendation, and what ultimately council decided upon. So that information is public record. It is on the city's website. If you have your email address, I definitely can direct you to that and you can look those up. The second part of the question with regard to the survey and the 5-year strategic plan. And I think of it as a hand. We have 5 years overall. This is the strategy. Each year, when those projects are applicants apply, say what projects you're going to do based on the priority needs of the community. That is the annual action plan within that 5-year plan. So each year, those projects and activities are our actions based on that 5-year plan. Mr. Gillian, did you have anything additional to add to that?
I just wanted to separate the two. Think of it in terms of our first step is to develop a plan for the priorities for the next 5 years. And then each year during that 5-year period, HUD will provide an allocation to the city of the dollar amount that you will receive for each year. The city council then will take that designated amount that it will receive and determine and approve a budget and the activities to be funded on each year. So it's a 5-year process up front to identify what are your priorities and what are your needs within the city. And then once HUD allocates your annual amount, the city council makes a decision each year as to what activities are funded and the amount that's then made available.
Are there any additional questions, final comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ebony Connor. I'm new to Killeen.
Hi, Ebony.
I'm currently an entrepreneur business owner, and I walked around downtown a few times and noticed a lot of the buildings possibly out of code. So let's just say that I go to a business that has North Downtown Killeen that has a property that's for rent. Are you guys checking to see if those properties are already up to code, if they have something listed for rent? Because I know for me in Coppers Cove, when I opened my business, I had to go to a city meeting. I had to meet the requirements. Oh, I'm sorry. I had to meet the requirements, make sure the building was up to code. And I backed out because I don't want to spend my life savings making your building great. And, you know, I might have a 1, 2, 5-year lease. And of course, over the time, I'm going to be improving the property because I want my business to grow. So is there a happy medium that you're finding with the business or the property owners downtown? Because a lot of it's torn up inside, empty. So how can you revitalize if the owners are not being held accountable? If that makes sense.
Thank you, Ms. Ebony. Code enforcement is not my area of purview. So I will not attempt to answer that, but I will let you know. We have code enforcement, and we do have a downtown, a revitalization manager that can probably answer most of those questions for you, Ms. Yes, and I will give you that information, the name of that manager, to kind of engage more and be able to answer those questions for you. Hi, Mr. Wilkerson.
Hello. How's everyone doing? My name is Ernest Wilkerson, and I am here tonight. Thank you guys for opening this. I'm glad we got the response, a good response tonight. One of the ladies mentioned something that's very important and dear to my heart, and that was about juvenile engagement. Now, we were known, Washington recognized us as when we had the YEC, when the YEC was very active. If you look at the crime rates during when we had an active YEC, which gave kids mentors, gave them actually involvement, they felt like they were part of the community. They were able to help shape policy. They felt like they were part of the community. And when we start falling away, you can see you could look at the graph, and it shows you how juvenile crimes have increased. What are we going to do to improve our YEC and invest the money that needs to be invested into the YEC do the trips that we need to make for our youth and invest in our youth. The trips to Washington, D.C., when we were recognized by the National League of Cities and other things that we were doing. We were taking kids to Washington, D.C. We were making an impact in the community. And now our YC, nobody knows about it. Where is it? What's going on? And we need to really look at that. And other youth and mentoring programs, our summer jobs programs for these kids. These kids don't need to be walking the streets. They need to be working. They need to either mentor, either summer job program to help shape them, to give them the tool and things they need. We talked about a business incubator a long time ago in the city of Killeen. We haven't, well, I think we need to make efforts to do that. That incubator is very important because it not only does it bring new businesses in town, we know we just lost the Business Resource Center. There are things we're missing. We need to know where we can go right now. Working with a group right now, we're trying to get actual grants where the SBA is coming to us. And so we need to work together. We need to work partnership and trying to get things going together. But the blight, like we said before, code enforcement. I think how many officers we have now in code enforcement? How many? What's the total? 11.
For those that might not have heard that, so 11 code enforcement officers, 2 supervisors.
And that's a great improvement from where we started. Because I remember where we started, we went from when we had 113,000 people or 98,000 people. Now we're 150, 160,000 people. And we're continuing to grow. And there's a lot of things coming down the pipe, and we got to be ready. And this plan is not for just now. We need to plan this for the future. So I just recommend everybody just make sure that this plan will last us for the future. I know we're going to have to make adjustments. All plans are made to be adjusted. But what we're doing is planning for the future because we got some big things coming down the pipe to Killeen. And we got to be ready because what's going to, well, just to say, everyone out there in the audience, please send your input in because this is going to be one of the most important plans that's going to be coming for the city of Killeen. And it will determine the growth and development of the city of Killeen and where we can be that city without limits, home of America's heroes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson, for your comments. It was a lot, so a couple of things I'll just try to point out and provide a response to. The 5-year consolidated plan, just a reminder, every 5 years we are mandated by HUD to do a 5-year consolidated strategic plan. Regarding the YAC, the youth organization, which is the City of Killeen Youth Organization, the Block Grant funding. I know you talked about those trips and everything. That YAC, I think their activities and things that they do are, I think Parks and Recreation is the overseer for YAC, if I am not mistaken. But most of their activities and everything are from Parks and Recreation budget, I believe. I don't quote me on that, please. But I do know YAC is under Parks and Recreation. And with regard to the many youth programs and activities, I agree. For those out there that are listening, those nonprofit organizations that are heading strong on youth programs, if you have a project, a program that is an eligible activity, please apply for them programs for the youth. Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am. See?
Hey, y'all, I'm Dee Terry. I'm a veteran. I've been in this area forever. I'm not close enough. My voice carries. I feel like I can.
Okay, I'm Dee Terry. I'm a veteran in this area. I volunteer for Bring Everyone in the Zone, a local 501(c) here. So Miss Maureen asked me to come to the meeting tonight. She's my lady. You know, she's actually gotten me out of my comfort zone and has helped me with my PTSD and anxiety. So I'm here to represent Bring Everyone in the Zone and let you guys know that my passion is our veterans in this area. So I want to know, what are we doing to help our veterans as far as their PTSD, their anxiety, their housing, keeping them off of the homeless radar, keeping them off of the mental illness radar, and making sure that, because on top of the mental illness radar, they're really always in the chance of losing their housing because of their mental illness and because of the PTSD and anxiety. It's like a catalyst, if I could say that. So want to know about that. And then since we are one of the programs in this area that stands up for our veterans, we do our peer-to-peer group meetings, and we're there for any veteran that's in the neighborhood that comes to our meetings. I just wanted y'all to know that I'm one of the people that's standing in the gap for that. So.
Thank you, Ms. Terry, for your question and your comments. With regard to the city, if it's your question, what is the city doing? The city is definitely supporting programming with regard to veterans. As you say, Bring Everyone in the Zones. They have been one of the recipients of block grant funding to support veterans. There have been other organizations in the past that have applied for and gained funding in support of veterans programs. So the city itself, we do not do the programs. This funding is made available to you organizations, nonprofits, for-profits, for programming such as your programs and projects that benefit those populations. So that's why we encourage you to say, indicate, vote, give your input on those priority needs, and then those organizations that have those projects, again, those projects that are ready to go, this funding is available. You put in your application, and then get the recommendation, go before CDAC to talk about your project. They'll make the recommendation, and ultimately, council will approve that project or activity.
I do see by way of grant how we're able to help several of our veterans in the community. As volunteering for the agency today, we had a whole bunch of veterans called in, and we've been helping them as they call in. So that was awesome. I was able to see the whole from beginning to end. And to be there to help, it's like, oh, okay, they actually need more and more volunteers. So I'm glad I was able to stand in the gap. I guess to closely more identify the question, I know we have the VA dorms all the way in Temple, right? But we don't have anything in our local area to house them when they're in between situations. So do we have a plan to help them when they're in between situations at this point in time?
And forgive me if I speak out of term, but I do know for families in crisis, they have some veteran programs that are available. And then the VA here, there's no VA housing here, but again, those organizations that work closely with the veterans and the housing, those programs are utilized to get them over to Temple to the VA housing. But I do know families in crisis do have some veteran programs.
Thank you.
Okay, I thank each of you all for taking time with us this evening. Again, please share the survey. Family members within your organizations, your coworkers, share as much as you can, and check out the community development website for updates to the calendar and important dates going forward. So thank you all for your time. No, I believe